Hey everyone, my name is Tommy Reynolds, and in this episode I'm going to show you exactly what I took in my camera bag when I went to Ethiopia. Alright, let's jump straight into it. This is the Lowepro Flipside 400 AW. Nothing new here. I've used this on every single travel trip. The only reason I take it is so that I can have an action camera strapped to the back of my backpack so that you can get that shot of me at the back of my head so I can photograph and film at the same time. And for that camera I use on the back of my head, it was this camera here, which is the Olympus TG Tracker. Now for this trip I should mention that it was sponsored by Olympus. This is the first time I've ever done one of my travel trips and I've been sponsored by a brand. So I got to use all of Olympus's video cameras and their action cameras and their high-end stills cameras. So we're gonna look at that in a sec, but this was the action camera that I used on the back of my backpack. And this is the first video that I've shot entirely in 4K. So this shoots obviously in 4K and it has a super wide angle view, even wider than the GoPro, which was amazing so that I could see left and right either side of my head, even more so in this video than previous travel trips. So this was a great camera to have. I really liked it because I didn't need to go through loads and loads of batteries like other action cameras that I've used in the past, because it has a really nice feature where once I've hit record, 10 seconds later the screen switches off so that I'm not using any power having that screen on, and I don't need it on because I'm not looking at that screen because it's just pointing at the back of my head, so I don't ever need to look at the screen. So that was a nice little feature on this TG Tracker. So that was most of what you see in this video is from this TG Tracker. If you want to shoot and film at the same time, it's a great tool to have if you can somehow strap it to the back of your backpack. I've just used a basic monopod on the back of my Flipside 400 AW. So this is my kind of go-to setup that I always do on every single travel trip. So that's that. Okay, so the main stills camera I used was the Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II. I believe at the time of recording, this is their flagship model. And having the grip on this camera was really, really nice because it felt really nice in your hands. This was my first time using a mirrorless camera and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Having the grip on there makes it feel a bit closer to a DSLR size, and I was just blown away with the sharpness from this camera, and it's so much lighter. My entire bag is so much lighter than previous trips using the Canon system. So on this one, on the Olympus, I was really surprised at the sharpness I was getting out of these files. First time I was using the live view boost as well, which was nice if you are using flash, and we'll get onto what I used flash wise in a sec. So having that live view boost so I can see and expose for the background without having my subject in complete silhouette, I'm still able to talk to them and maneuver them, etc., and see what their face is doing, and still have the power of the mirrorless system. So yeah, loved this camera. I think I've become a convert and want to use the Olympus system in future travel trips, so really, really impressed. So I used 4 lenses on this trip. When I go traveling, I usually take 3. I don't usually include a telephoto lens, but on this trip, because the system was so much smaller, I decided to take the telephoto. So this is their 40 to 150 millimeter f2.8 telephoto lens. And I'm gonna go straight in and say that I got my absolute favorite image with this lens. So I'm really thankful that I took this mirrorless system out there as opposed to my other, because I wouldn't usually have taken the Canon equivalent, because it's the 7200 Canon is like a kilo. It's a heavy lens. Traveling, weight is always an issue, so this was very welcomed. And look at this cool little feature. Hang on, wait for it. That's pretty cool, I like that. It's so much lighter than the 7200, so I really, really like this lens. So that's the 40 to 150 millimeter. So the next lens I used is the 25mm f1.2 prime. This was an amazing lens, probably one of my favorite lenses. If you're someone like me and you like to use a 50mm on your full frame camera maybe, that would be the equivalent of it. So you just kind of double it. It's ×2 crop. So 25 ×2, 50, so it's like a 50mm on your full frame camera. So I was using this a lot and I love this lens. So you'll see a few pictures now. I really, really love using this lens. So that was the 25mm f1.2. The next one is the 17mm f1.2 prime. So this, I guess, is close to the 35mm if we're talking 35mm full frame. My God, 35mm 35 frame, but oh my God. So this again is the equivalent in full frame around the 35mm mark, which is one of my favorite focal lengths to use. So this was a necessity to use this lens, and on screen now you're going to see some examples of this lens being used. Another great prime, so sharp. I was so impressed with all of these lenses. Their Olympus's Pro lenses are fantastic. So impressed. So that's the 17mm f1.2. The last lens that I used was the ultra wide angle. This is their 17 to 14mm f2.8 Pro lens. You can see the lens there is kind of spherical, so if you want to put ND filters, you've got to get one of these special holders. Didn't use it an awful lot because it was mainly the other primes that I was using, but the optics on Olympus are very well made. It performed so much better than I thought it was going to be. So that was all the lenses. Now I do have another body in here. So this is the EM10 Mark III Olympus, and this was our kind of backup filming camera. This was kind of like our B-roll camera, and the lens on here is another 17mm, but this is their f1.8, so it's much smaller than the 1.2. Great for being a bit discreet and filming. This camera has a flip screen, so I'm able to shoot down here, which is really cool. Our guide was actually used this more than we did. He was able to film quite discreetly because of the flip screen, looking down onto it like that. And the image stabilization built into Olympus's were fantastic, really good. I hardly had to use any warp stabilization, if any, on any of the shots used on here. And look how small it is. Look how small that is. It's such a cool little travel camera, not just for filming, but also if you're shooting stills. But we were just shooting video on the EM10 Mark III. Great little camera. All right, let's talk about flashes. Let's talk about what I used to light the scenes and what softboxes and what flashes I used. So on this trip, I used the Pika 200 by Pixapro, which are these guys here. Now, I took a couple with me because last time I went to Vietnam, I took only one, and I wanted to try and take advantage of their new double bracket system where you can put two Pikas on a softbox so you don't need one, you can actually put two and effectively have double the power. So instead of having 200 watts, I was having 400 watts. I love using this system. They're great, they're perfect for traveling with, and you can even use them in the studio as well. I use them all the time in my studio as backup flashes or fill lights or backlights. So they're great for studio and also great on location as well. I always take them on location. They're really cool. I'll show you right now how you can attach them. Okay, so the softbox I used is the Pixapro 90cm easy open softbox. If you've been watching my work for a while, you'll know that this is nothing different. This is my go-to light. I absolutely love this light. It's my favorite softbox. It's the perfect size. It's not too big and it's not too small. Having Alex with me, my assistant, to hold the light and reposition it anywhere I needed it to was a huge help to me, huge necessity for making these trips work. And the way that I kind of packed it together is in the bag. I left the bracket on, and I left the little handle on here, the kind of the monopod so that Alex was holding. I put that in the bag with the softbox so that it was so easy to pull out and it's ready to go. So when you pull it out here, the Pikas now just attach to here, so like so. So all I would need to do is just group them the same. So if I put them both on group A, when I adjust the output of the flashes, the output of both of them are going to change at the same time. So I don't need to change it for A and then change it for B. If they're both on A, if I change it to 1/16, they're both going to be on 1/16 power. So that made it very easy to change. And you have double the power, so even better. So the monopod's already connected. So what we need to do is just tie that up, attach that. So this, we got really quick at doing this. And the bulbs, by the way, are already in there. So there's two bulbs there So if you'll get a bulb when you buy a peaker. You buy one peaker, you get a bulb. So if you obviously buy two for your double bracket, you can use both the bulbs that come with the peaker to attach to your double peaker bracket, okay? So I just left the bulbs inside. I didn't leave them in there when I was flying, but when we got there and we were, when it was inside and we were moving from place to place, I left it inside the softbox. I mean, it's kind of encased inside that metal thing, so it was pretty safe. Well, they didn't break, so it was all right. So all we need to do is just open up the softbox. Okay, for every single shot, it was all using the double diffusion. It does come with the grid. Didn't use the grid though. I want everything to be as soft as possible. So we had double diffusion panels on at all times. So when we put that onto the peakers, we can then lift it up and then we can fire away. As long as the monopod and the bracket went inside the bag with the softbox, then it just made the assembling and putting away really, really quick. And there it is. Really smart little system. And one really cool tip that we did was if we wanted to turn this into two lights, then we could easily just take one of these guys off. So take that off. So it will still work with only one. Obviously you just only have half the power. But if that's fine, and I mean I coped fine in Vietnam, I just used one. All I would do then is I would pull out this guy and I would just use the speed lighter bracket that comes with the peaker. So if I just reattach this back, and I've got a Magmod little jobby on here as well. I've got a CTO gel with a grid. Just put that on there, magnetize, boomtown. And then I'll just turn that to B, group B, so that I can control that one and that one. It's now two separate ones. And I'll just get my guide or someone else there just to hold it behind, and boom, you've turned one light into two. And if you really need more power, then you know you can just go back to the one system if you need that extra oomph. Most of the time I didn't need it, but it was nice knowing that I had it if I needed it. So having the Magmod system, you don't need it, but if you want to kind of add a bit of separation by gelling it and having like a warm tint behind and gridding it so that it's more channel focused, then you can use that, and put it on. Sweet little system. And to trigger the flashes and the output and the group, changing the groups, I use the Pixapro ST3 trigger. Has all the bells and whistles you can imagine on a trigger. I can change everything I need to from this little cool device. It has, what's cool about the peaker system is it has a built-in wireless receiver for the trigger, so I don't need to have a receiver plugged onto this. It's got it built in, and that's the same with Pixapro's other flash systems as well. Triggering this flash at full power, easy. The recycle time was up to, if you're at full power, it's about 2 seconds, but you can get about 500 flashes at full power. And bearing in mind, I've now got double the power, so sometimes I didn't need to use full power, I only use half power. So if I'm using half power, that means I get 1,000 shots at half power. Sometimes I was at 1/16 power, which meant the recycle time was like that. There was just no gaps at all. So the Pika 200 is my absolute go-to flash for travelers, or if you want to do some stuff in the studio, easily be able to do it, but a necessity for me when going traveling. And the last thing in my camera bag, and the most important thing that you're going to take if you're doing anything similar, is an external hard drive. This one is by Lacey. It's a 1 terabyte size, which is plenty for all of the content, all of the video, all of the photos, etc. This is a shockproof one, which is nice in case it does obviously drop. And I like to put my name and my email address and my number in case it goes missing. So hopefully, if it does go missing, someone will do the right thing and let me know. Touch wood, it hasn't though. But as I say, this will be the most important thing that you take, and the system that we had was at the end of each day, we would back up all of the photos, all of the videos, and then I would then ask Alex to back them up to his own hard drive. So he brought his own hard drive as well. So we had this backed up, everything backed up to 2 separate devices. It's the most important thing you are going to take. So that's the last thing in my camera bag. Now, if you're doing anything like this in the future, I just want to stress that it doesn't matter what you have in your camera bag, okay? Having the best gear is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that it's well planned. Finding out the best time of year to visit that country, trying to get a local guide. This is something that I always stress. Getting the right insurance, having the right paperwork, and making sure that it's the right time of year to travel and it's not a rainy season, for example. All of this little stuff. Making sure that you're well planned before you go to the trip. If you want to learn more, then click the link up there and that will take you to my 10 tips for travel photographers, so you can learn more tips about, as I say, the logistics before the planning side of things before you go on this trip. So that's about it from me. Thanks ever so much for watching this video, guys. If you liked it, then please make sure you hit that like or share button, or subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Cheers, guys. Bye bye.